What's up, watch friends? Welcome to Talking Timepieces with Tony. I'm Tony. Today's Wednesday, and I figured I would do a midweek video since tomorrow's Thanksgiving in the United States. So all of my United States viewers, wish you a happy Thanksgiving. I hope you have a safe weekend, all that good stuff. Today I am wearing my Nomos Tangente lemon biscuit. One of only 175 in this color. Anyway, Nomos, completely underrated brand. But so today I just wanted to talk about kind of almost an addendum to my previous video on the watch market about how the market's changed and why are you spending money on watches. So let's roll the intro and we'll talk about it.
You're talking timepieces with Tony. You're talking timepieces with Tony.
So the story starts way back, way back before the pandemic, right? A lot of YouTubers, including myself, have talked about this, how the market was prior and how it is now. And it's never going to change. It's not going back to the way it was. It's going back to a certain extent, but it'll never get back to the way it was because now we've been programmed and our minds have been somewhat brainwashed into a different ideology than what we had previously. So when I say, would you spend $10,000 on a Zenith, for instance? Would you spend $10,000 on a Cartier? Would you spend $10,000 on a Rolex? And some of you would say yes, no, whatever watch you like, a JLC. What you pick your brand. Would you spend the money on that watch? And of course, you're watching this channel. If you're going, yeah, of course, man. That's why we watch your channel. That's why we're into luxury watches, man. But now the mentality is slightly different. So I think when I go back prior to pandemic times, and I've said this before, people have short attention spans. They don't remember or whatever. It's great that people are getting into watches now, like more than they ever had been. You know what I mean? Prior to the pandemic, there was an issue because of, I've said this before, because of the smart watches and, people just, and the smartphones, everything was giving you the time accurately. So you didn't need to wear a watch anymore. And but for those of us who have been into watches for a very long time, we bought watches because, well, are we passionate about watches? I mean, really, I'm talking about, yes, I'm really passionate about watches. And I'm not talking about the fair weather passionate fans that say they're passionate and then they go, oh, look, a cookie, and they venture off and they're no longer into watches. You know what I mean? Because that happens a lot, man. But one of the last things on our minds prior to pandemic, when we go buy a luxury watch, Rolex, Cartier, JLC, Zenith, you name it, the one thing that nobody thought in their head that almost everybody thinks now, I'm sure of it, is what's it worth on the secondary market? Or what can I get this watch for on the secondary market? Or what can I sell this watch for if I have to sell it? That wasn't really a thought process because prior, there was hardly any gray market dealers. Granted, I've said this before, there was Joma Shop, but back then, I'm not saying now, they didn't purchase secondhand watches from people, So, and they do now for luxury brands. Like you'll see something that says trade-in eligible for something that's high-end because they'll take something as a trade and then they'll sell it as used, whereas they didn't do that before just a few years ago. And you had companies like Govberg that would buy watches and sell watches, but it was nowhere near to the magnitude of what it is now, right? So when you went to go buy a watch, the last thing on your mind is, well, what could I sell it for? Or what could I get for it if I had to? There was none of that. You know what I mean? You bought the watch simply because, one, you had passion for that watch. That's the watch you wanted. You worked hard for. You love that watch, whatever piece it may be. So that's your passion, and two, you have enough money to pay for the watch. Three, there's nothing that you would think about as when you walked out of that AD about selling it or what it would be worth, and you didn't have all these websites to look on the phone, see what the secondary market was. There was no Chrono 24. There was no Watch Finder. There was no Bargain Basement Bazaar. It was none of that. It was just you bought the watch because you loved it. Now, because we've all been programmed, everyone's got a YouTube channel, or they used to. I mean, half those channels have dropped off, but now you've got all these, secondary gray market channels that are keeping watches alive, which is great. Don't get me wrong, because I'm glad there's still, a market for watches. I don't think that some of these gray market dealers are very reputable, and some of these YouTuber gray market dealers, are very reputable. And I'm speaking from me having talked to some of these people without saying, hey, I'm talking timepieces with Tony. You know what I mean? Legit, when I was selling a watch, more specifically my Vacheron Constantin, and then realized that they're all shady as, so that being said, I'm going to tell you that, the reputable places, like the 1916 company, Bob's Watches, Watch Finder, Premier, Prestige, whatever. There's a lot of very reputable buyers out there that they might not give you as much as one of these gray market YouTube channels, but what are you looking for when you sell the watch, right? But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. I digress. We never had this whole thing about the selling the watch. So the thing is, now what people do is, instead of saying, hey, well, I want the new reference sub, for instance, if you took the 124060, no date, and you wanted to get that watch, well, now I can't get it at the AD, right? So what are you going to do? Well, shit. Every gray market dealer on the planet's got one or two or 10, So you go to the gray market, you pay a little bit more, and you'll get your watch. And the problem is now, because of that mindset, people are buying watches and they're just selling them, even if they're taking a hit. Because I guarantee you this, when you go to any one of these reputable gray market dealers and they've got the new, say they have, let's just take this Nomos, for instance. This Nomos is like $2,400, right? And if you see one on the secondary gray market and it's a lot less, the person who sold it for like nothing, a few $100s, So the point being is, back in the day, we had a passion for watches. My question to you is, what drives you? What motivates you? What's your passion when it comes to watches? What's your thought process when you buy it? Do you look at it and go, I want that? Or do you do all online shopping to see how cheap you can get it for online? Keep in mind, when you buy secondary, a lot of times you've got to be careful, because for one, you got to make sure it's legit, right? And then two, you buy a secondhand watch, especially an automatic manual one, and it's not keeping good time, then you have to send that watch back and hope that they service it properly. Don't, jack it around, and it's more complicated. Sometimes it's better to just buy new. I said this before, but when you buy new, you get that watch, something goes wrong with it, you can walk right back into that AD, hand them the watch and say, this watch isn't working properly, right? Now, there's some gray market dealers, and when I say gray market dealers, let's take perfect example, Happy Jewelers. Have you guys ever heard of Happy Jewelers? They have a YouTube show that's become popular because of producer Michael. And also one of my viewers, Al, shops there, and he swears by him. So when I look at them overall, I don't look at them as like sort of a gray market dealer like I look at some of these other like YouTube channels or Basement Bazaar or, whatever a lot of those other companies are, because, somewhere like Happy Jewelers is actually a jewelry store that happens to sell luxury watches and pre-owned luxury watches, and some of them are fairly new and whatever. So and their market is just like a lot of the other on the gray market, where it's this above retail, or this whatever the market is for that watch is what they're selling it for, so maybe a little bit higher. But what you're getting with someone like that is you've got a brick and mortar foundation where you can just walk in, buy a watch, walk out, a problem with the watch, walk in, go, problem with the watch, and they'll go, no problem, we'll take care of it. You can't do that with these gray market channels. You have to call them and then try to say, hey, look, man, my watch isn't running. And they're going to convince you that that watch was fine when they sent it to you. Okay, but send it back. And you're going to go through a lot more hassle by doing that. So, is it better to buy brand new or secondary? It's up to you. You do what you want to do. But I'm kind of going off track here. The thing is we bought watches because we had a passion. We never thought about the secondary market, and now I look at, some watches. I wonder if people are buying them because they're just hype watches that you can't get. What watch is it that you want, that you really want, right? Oh man, I feel like I'm totally not making any sense now. For instance, everybody has a sub and everybody wants a sub. But why? Why do you want the Submariner? What is it about the sub, or the Daytona for that matter, that, especially the Daytona? Well, that's what we all strive for, is the Daytona. But why? Do you really like it, or is it because you can't get it? You know what I mean? So I don't know if I made a whole lot of sense in this. I was just trying to basically say that in the grand scheme of things, prior to the pandemic, there was still a watch market. We bought them because we loved them, not because we were thinking about selling them, because we enjoyed them and they were, something that we really loved, and we loved wearing them, and never thought, or it occurred to us, well, I have to sell it now. You know what I mean? So on that note, I just wanted to say happy Thanksgiving. I hope everyone, likes and subscribes to my channel. I appreciate it.